honest. The more honest you are, the more seeds you plant. The more seeds you plant, the more money comes in. We should invest in the bank of other people, which means be super generous to help people who are in need with the money that you have. The more you understand about the seeds, the more that helping other people is equal to a stock investment or a property investment.
Should I invest in Bitcoin and digital cryptocurrencies?
I've heard many terrible stories of people losing their funds. Every investment, no matter where you make it, how you make it, the foundation of it is how many seeds have you planted by being very, very generous to people in need. Never, never, never not follow the laws of your country about paying tax. The government's not stupid. Don't try to cheat the government and pay your full taxes.
All right, so thank you, Geshe Michael. Thank you for your time. I want to ask you some of the most asked questions on Google and different search engines. So these are the things that people are most interested in.
Cool.
The first one is, how can I save money more effectively? I'll give some context. People often seek strategies to save money, whether it's for a specific goal or general financial security. So can you give us your advice on how I can save money effectively?
I think saving money, the solution is the same thing as making money, which is being generous, especially when people need things. But being generous doesn't mean you cannot put aside money like for your retirement or to buy a home or something like that. So I think it's very possible to do both. Be super generous, but on a regular basis, like I try to do it every quarter or something, move some money into your permanent savings account, and you don't have to give that money away. So I think be generous with your general income and put aside money every quarter or something, and that's fine.
So women also ask, what are the best ways to save for retirement considering career breaks? Context is, given that women are more likely to have career breaks, the question about how to compensate for this period in retirement planning, so what advice do you have for that?
If it were me, in that situation, I think I think necessarily you're going to have to save a larger amount when you're working than most people would, because you're going to have breaks away from work, like to raise a child, for example. So I would say when you're working, take a larger percentage out to put into savings, but at the same time, don't short your generosity. Like still remain very generous and very willing to spend from your income to share with other people. But it doesn't mean you have to take money out of your special fund for retirement or for buying a house or something. That's okay to keep that money safe. Don't take out from that money. But from the general income that you make when you are working, be very generous. So both.
Speaking of that, can you please tell us about, I know that you probably use several virtual accounts, not necessarily different bank accounts. Can you please tell us some applicable ways in which you use virtual accounts for the different things you want to give?
Yeah, how do I use virtual accounts? Virtual account means that, inside of your general bookkeeping, you reserve certain amounts for certain purposes. And then when you spend money, you take it out of that account from that purpose. And I use virtual accounts to a huge extent because oftentimes I have people will sponsor a project, and then I have to be careful, very careful, to take the money out of the project that they asked that the money be used for, and I don't mix that money up with other accounts. So for me, in my life, virtual accounts is a great idea. It's a little more bookkeeping, it's a little more trouble, but definitely in the end, you can closely track and be more honest. The more honest you are, the more seeds you plant, the more seeds you plant, the more money comes in.
The next question is, what do you think are the best investment strategies for women? Context is, there's a growing interest in investment strategies tailored to women's financial goals, risk tolerance, expectancy, which tends to be a little bit longer than men's. So would your advice be somehow different?
Yeah, it is true that women have a longer life expectancy, and oftentimes that comes back to haunt them because they live longer than expected. They run out of money before like their husband did, and so it is true that women have a longer lifespan, and women have to be careful to plan for that. And again, I don't think it's contradictory to be generous with the income that you do have, and then to set aside money for your retirement or after your working years are over. So I think for a woman especially, you should plan. I heard the average for a 65-year-old woman is about 20, 25 years after that. And I think you should plan for that. And the people I know who have not planned for that have had a real problem. So be generous with the income that you have, but be realistic about investing for for your full future. Also, I'm not aware of special funds just for women's investment. If there is such a thing, I think for a woman to invest, like, I don't know, I'm thinking about Grameen Foundation, which invests a lot in women entrepreneurs. And I think that would be a great way for a woman to invest and to assure that they have funds for after their working years.
People often, let's say that people manage to work well and get a little bit of extra money. Question that always comes, should I invest in real estate? Should I invest in cryptocurrency? What's your advice on how to invest your money?
What's the best kind of investment for people? I personally, in general, I like to spread out my investments. I have some investments in property, in land, in a restaurant. I have other investments in stocks. I like to choose the stocks according to products that I think help people in the world. But in general, we should invest in the bank of other people, which means be super generous to help people who are in need with the money that you have. And that is a very real investment. The more you understand about the seeds, the more that helping other people is equal to a stock investment or a property investment. If it's me, I'll kind of spread out my investments. Maybe I have some property, some stock investments, possibly some gold. And then I would also actively invest in other people's need.
So the next question is, how can we balance saving for our children's education with our retirement savings?
I think there's always a balance for parents between saving for their children's education and possibly a house or a nice apartment after they start a family, and then balancing that with the money that you set aside for your own post-earning years. And I think that if we don't put enough funds into our own post-earning years support, that anyway, that money is going to have to come very possibly from your children. So again, you're just putting more onus or more work on them if you don't plan ahead, for your own retirement. So I think it's a balance. I think you should plan ahead for your entire retirement. You should think carefully, plan your expenses. In my experience, many people going into retirement haven't even looked at the numbers. They have no idea what they spend every month, and it's kind of amazing. And then after a year of retirement, suddenly they have to sell their house or something like that. So I think plan wisely for your retirement, and then plan also for your children's needs. Again, for planting seeds, it's always preferable to be generous with other people even if you think that you might be underestimating what you need for yourself, in the end, the more generous you are with other people, the more you will have for yourself.
Let's talk about investing for the future of our children, for example. In any type of investments, there's always inherent risk. How can you use the seed principle to make sure that whatever investment we do will have a very fruitful result for the next generation, meaning our kids?
Yeah, I understand the question. I want to provide for my children. I would like to invest ahead of time before their big expenses come, college education, their own home, their own raising their own family. And I understand there's a desire to prepare that for them and to get ready for that. And what's the best kind of investment that will allow that? There's a phenomenon with helping your children where you invest uh, to save money to help your children, and then something happens to the investment, and that's very common. We've had big crashes of very trustable companies in my country and in every country. So I think uh, the seeds to keep the money, the seeds to keep the money that has been invested, cannot be collected by the parents. Those seeds have to be collected. Those seeds have to be planted by the children. So if you truly want the investment that you've put aside for your children to be safe, you must educate your children about planting their own seeds, and that's the only way that the investments will remain safe after you create them for your children.
Next question is, should I invest in Bitcoin and digital cryptocurrencies? The context of this is there's a lot of curiosity in the world about cryptocurrencies and digital currencies. There's some questions though about their legality, risk, and investment strategies. What do you recommend?
I personally think that every new technology, every new invention has inherent risks and inherent opportunities. I personally have not invested in Bitcoin because of the volatility of it. But I do know friends who have been very successful in investing in that. I don't think, again, that it's so much the particular investment that you make as the seeds that you have planted going into the investment. So I think it's similar to almost any other investment. I don't think that the fact that the Bitcoin is digital, or that it exists in the cloud or something like that, I don't think that's inherently more risky than the current financial system in the world. All of our money uh, exists in the cloud, and so I don't think it's inherently more risky than other investments. I would say, wisely, carefully invest. Uh, Talk to people who understand it. Generally, when someone suggests a get-rich strategy, which is not based on seeds, and they claim that they have a new strategy that no one else has figured out, that kind of strategy I avoid completely because, I don't believe that there's not people much smarter than me who are investment managers who would know to invest in that. So when someone comes to you and says they have an insight into investment that full-time investment experts haven't figured out yet, I'm extremely wary of that kind of investment. And I've heard many terrible stories of people losing their funds. Again, every investment, no matter where you make it, how you make it, the foundation of it is how many seeds have you planted by being very, very generous to people in need.
What advice would you give people for them to manage their debt?
What's the best way to manage debt? I think the best way to manage debt is to never get into debt. Of course, there are circumstances where we have to borrow money. and just to survive or just to support our family. But in general, I'm of the personal opinion, and that's the way I've led my whole life, is that I don't borrow money. And I understand that if you want to start a business, that you might have to borrow money as an investment. But I personally like to build up the funds myself, and then go into a business. I'm very adverse to borrowing money in general. But if according to the C's, the borrowing is done very cleanly and very sincerely, and that you have a real plan to pay it back, I think it's possible. But in general, again, I'd say 90% of people who borrow money uh, are not managing their finances wisely, and when they get the money that they borrow, they will also not manage that wisely, and then they'll be in double trouble. So I'm very, very wary of borrowing money. But if you do want to start a business which requires a great amount of capital, which would take several lifetimes to build up by yourself, and you intend to make the investors shareholders in your company, something like that, I think that's fine, as long as you're very upfront with the investors, very honest about the whether it's going to, how it looks, and stay honest as the business progresses, and don't surprise the investor on the day that you fold, that they lose all their money. I think you have to be very wise. If it looks like there's going to be trouble in the company, then inform your investors, give them a chance to cash out. But in general, I think borrowing money because you've run out of money is generally a disastrous strategy. Finally, again, even if you decide to borrow money from investors, I think still there should be an agreement with the investors. The investors should understand that your personal policy, your corporate policy, is to be super generous even with the borrowed money. So, if I borrow, I don't know, if I borrow $100,000, I personally would tell the investor, look, it's part of my strategy with this new business that we are super generous with people who have great need. And as an investor, I'd like you to understand that before we go forward.
A fairly recent trend is the world of influencers and kind of like inflated lifestyles. And this had pushed a lot of people to get into high debt. How would you use the seed system to help with this?
Yeah, I think there's a tendency now with the influencer phenomenon, which is not going to go away, and it's not inherently bad. I think it's just like anyone else who's running a business. Being an influencer can be an honorable, very helpful business. You can help many people by being an influencer. I think that's fine. I was in the diamond business, and there's a lot of hype around diamond business. You see people get rich quickly sometimes, and then inevitably you see them get in serious trouble. And so when people are buying an extra car every week, like I have a friend, Rolls Royce, and then a Ferrari, and then like that kind of ostentatious wealth making, or spending, I think it's a recipe for trouble. I think when you're distracted by buying, it's very common, for example, to buy 2 or 3 extra homes, so that you have a winter skiing place and you have a summer beach place. And then inevitably you can't sustain that kind of income. And then inevitably you're having to sell it. I don't think because there's an inherent problem with buying things once you have the money, but it distracts you from being generous to people in need. If you can enjoy ostentatious wealth, and at the same time be extremely attentive to people around the world who need help, then I think there is a place for that. I think it is possible. But I think most people who get distracted by toys will forget to invest in the bank of other people, and they will forget to be generous to people who are in true need.
So, I know that in many projects, you would have had a great opportunity to get a big income and have the millionaire lifestyle. Instead, you chose to live in the smallest legal piece of a building in Arizona. Can you please tell us why you made this decision?
Yeah, why haven't I used or you know focused on increasing or using more of the money that I make personally? Um, to be honest, I think for a long time I have had a lifestyle where I don't think about physical things. In my smallest home, in my smallest legal home, to be honest, I use two chairs mostly. I spend most of the first half of the day at the kitchen table working on Seiji's book and other projects like that. And then the second half of the day, I'm oftentimes, I switch over to my desk because I can watch the beautiful sunset and things like that. So I realized that even in a small house, I generally only use two chairs probably 80-90% of the day. And I'm not some kind of a saint or something that I don't think about. I'm not trying to be modest in my living, but I with the things that I have a passion for, I don't need more than two chairs and a laptop. And so I don't know, if I had a passion for something more expensive, I'd probably be happy to spend the money. But as in my life, the things I would like to do in my life, they don't require a large amount of money. I can't even think of a way to. I guess I could get a platinum chair or something, but you know, just my personal lifestyle. And I'm very don't like maintenance. People have been giving me, some friends have been giving me dinners recently, and it's much more than I can ever eat. They give it to me in different kinds of plastic Tupperwares and things like that. And then just the time it takes me to wash them and make sure I give it back, even that much time, it really is difficult for me. I don't have that much time. So the time it would take to own many things, I'm not willing to spend.
Let's say that somehow you manage to get yourself into a lot of debt, both in the mortgage and maybe in credit cards for a lifestyle that you cannot afford. What advice would you have for these kind of people?
Suppose I do get into debt, and what kind of advice would I give? I'll to be honest, uh, when I was in the diamond jewelry business, I used to donate almost all of my income to our charity to preserve the ancient wisdom. And oftentimes I would have to borrow money from my teacher just for my small expenses like laundry and things like that. So we had an agreement that, I could actually go into his cash drawer and take whatever money I want and leave a little note that says I took $100 or something like that. And so I do know what it feels like to be in debt. I've been in this little debts with him. Sometimes I would start a big charitable project and get into some debt, and I would owe the money to him or to some other people. And I think personally, when I have to borrow money, I will cut back radically on my other expenses in order to pay it back quickly. I don't like to owe people money. I don't like to be in debt. And as long as that debt is there, I will work especially hard to cut down my expenses and not to take on additional debts. So I think it is okay to take on a debt for a special project. Uh, but at the same time, I think almost to remind yourself that you have a debt, you should cut down radically on your other expenses so that you can pay the debt back faster. And you shouldn't borrow more money on top of the first debt. You should pay back the first debt. And then if you need money for a special project, maybe take on a second debt. But in general, again, uh, people who tend to get in debt tend to get in worse debt. So once you're in any kind of debt, I think you have to radically examine your lifestyle and get out of debt and stay out of debt. Also, I believe that when you're in debt, you are less generous. I think all human beings, when they're in debt, they're less willing to share what they have. And then there's a cycle that because you're less willing to share, then you don't make as much money and then you get more in debt. So I think debt for that reason is a very dangerous place to go. And I would really encourage people. In my life, I have never taken on any major debt at all. And I pretty much think it's a bad idea.
What do you think is the best way to save on taxes?
Save on what?
Taxes.
Oh, good.
And I guess I'll add my part. Do you think it's it's a good strategy to try to save as much on taxes?
Is it a good strategy to try to save on your taxes? And I'm very clear about it. First of all, you should never not pay your taxes. You should never, never, never not follow the laws of your country about paying tax. I've known so many people who got into trouble this way. The government's not stupid. You know, AIs can pretty much predict your behavior. So, don't be stupid. Don't try to cheat the government and pay your full taxes. First. Second, when you do pay taxes, you are supporting all the activities of your government. And I don't know, almost every government is helping to create the internet in your country, the social services, the agriculture, the military, the police. They're helping to pay things that make us all safe and make us all healthy. So I think in that sense, it's an honor to pay taxes. And you should think about when you cheat on your taxes. I was heard recently about a politician who had cheated on their taxes quite badly. And I was curious how anyone could vote for this person because the voters will have to pay the money that this person cheated. You see what I mean? And I thought it was odd. So I think we should pay our full taxes. I've even joked with my friends. I sometimes overpay my taxes on purpose, and I will do that from time to time. But at the same time, I'm quite willing to take advantage of a legal tax break. If there's a legal way to pay less taxes, for example, in my country, our foundation, our charitable foundation, if we make our donations to really poor people or people in a tsunami or a volcano or something, when we support those people, there is a way in my country to get a tax break. And I'm quite happy to work hard to make sure I get a legal tax break. And then I'm quite happy to get more money back. And I'm quite happy to use that money again to help more people. And to pay my expenses. So I think that's fine. If it's legal, if it's proper, I think that's fine. Then when you get your tax break, be wise, be seed wise, how you use the money that you get back, and try to roll it over. Try to invest in needy people, hungry people, people having natural disasters, and try to increase that return.
Next, we have a follow-up question. Let's say that you are willing and happy to pay your taxes, but the country that you live in does a lot of things that you don't agree. For example, wage international wars or use that money for conquering other places. I don't know if conquering is the right word.
Yeah.
The things that you generally don't support or you wouldn't like to support. How to make peace with these two concepts?
What about, if I support paying taxes and then the government to which I pay the taxes is using the taxes in a way which I object to? For example, actively harming other human beings. Then what should I do? I myself, I think, as most of the listeners might know, I have participated in protests. I have gone to jail in my life for that, against violence to others. And so I feel strongly about that. I think in almost every country, you can influence the activity of your government in a legal, proper way that even that government supports. So, I think it's wisest if there's a way that you can not break the law in your country, and if there's a way, a legal, proper way that you can express how you feel about. So if it's me, for example, I will pay the taxes that I'm required to pay. But in my country, I have the option to write to my congressman or congresswoman and say, look, I have paid my taxes because I don't have time to go to jail, but I don't support this activity of my government to use those taxes to harm people, for example. And in fact, in my understanding of the ancient wisdom, if I don't express that if I don't express in a legal and proper way to my legal representatives that I don't support violence, then in some way I'm collecting seeds for that violence. So I think it's wise for us to be frank and be honest within the laws of your country about how we feel about violence being done in my name or with my taxes. But at the same time, I think if you're going to live in a country, you should follow the laws of that country. If you feel strongly that you will never have a chance to really express or to how you feel about how your taxes are used, if you feel like it's kind of out of control and you cannot support it, then I think you have to be brave and consider legally moving to another country where there wouldn't be that kind of policy.
How much money do I need to retire? Retirement planning is a significant concern, with question focusing on savings needed to maintain a certain lifestyle.
How much money do I need to retire? I mean, I have to think about this nowadays, and I do have family members that I have to think about. And I think it's a question that you wouldn't ask me if you had planned for your retirement. So planning for retirement means get a piece of paper, get a pen, and sit down at the kitchen table and make a realistic list of what your expenses are today and how much you are spending now. And then I would pad it maybe 25%. If you find out that you're spending $2,000 a month and then you're trying to plan for your retirement I think you should say that you might spend 2,500 or something, or you'll be spending. There might be inflation, there might be a war, taxes might go up. We don't know. So I would take the main thing is study your current expenses. Be honest about your current expenses. Look at your current expenses and cut out the things that you're not really using. Like I have subscriptions to all these online video networks because I wanted to watch one movie and they caught me. And so I would strip out your expenses, get it down to your real expenses, add 25% in your mind, and that's what you're going to spend after your retirement. And then multiply that times the expected life expectancy in your country. And be aware that your life expectancy is higher than it has been in the past. And that's a phenomenon which is hurting a lot of people. You will live much longer than your parents lived, and barring any emergency in the world. So be realistic and set aside that kind of money if you can. And in any case, whatever income you get that you're paying your current expenses with, be extremely generous with that. Don't get into this trap where you are cutting down your assistance to other people because you're worried that you won't have enough in the future. Because the amount you will have in the future is very largely determined by your generosity. It is not determined by the amount of your generosity. It's determined by the spirit of generosity that you have. There's a famous quotation that even the great beings of the past were not able to pay off the debts of mankind, all humankind. There's still people around the world in debt. There's still people, have there been great people in the past? Have there been great thinkers in the past? Have there been great seed masters in the past? Yes. Did they eliminate poverty in the world themselves? And we have to say no. So it doesn't mean that you should judge your own efforts to eliminate poverty by the amount of poverty around you. You have to, whether the poverty around you is low or it's high, still you have to be super generous. And it's only this attitude of freely giving what you have, freely giving from what you have, happily considering it an honor to give from what you have. That's the only real way to assure your retirement.
How can I protect my finances in case of a divorce or the death of a spouse?
That's a great question. I think every woman should be asking it. And in different countries, there's different laws. If I'm a woman and I'm in a family, how can I protect my income? How can I set aside income in the event of the death of a spouse or divorce or something like that? And I personally believe that a woman in a relationship should have the right to, an equal part of the income of the family. In my particular country and in my particular state, that's the law anyway. In this state, when you get married to someone, you automatically own half of any assets they create after that moment. So I think that's a good law. I think a man and a woman have an equal right to the income. Yes, it's a typical pattern that the man will get an occupation somewhere. Yes, it's a typical pattern that the woman might be called upon to spend much of her earning years raising a child, or nowadays caring for an aging parent of either person, that kind of work still falls to the women in the family mostly. So I think there has to be a recognition that this is the case, and there has to be a recognition that whether you are getting up and going to work every day, or whether you are taking care of the family at home, you still deserve an exactly equal share of the income of the family. And I think it's important when people get married, before they get married, they should talk about it. They should work this out. I believe if you're a woman in the modern world, you're going to get married, you should have these conversations. And it's not impolite, and it's not something you have to avoid talking about. It's reality. And if I'm a woman, if I'm going into a marriage, if my husband's not willing to share the income of the family equally from the moment we get married, then I wouldn't marry them. And I would wait and find a husband who would who would treat me as an equal. And I think in the past 10,000 years, this has not been the case. It's going to be difficult to correct that. But I think women in the modern world should recognize that their value is exactly equal to the value of the man in the family. And I in my opinion, the assets, incoming assets, should be shared equally. And if the woman chooses to invest or save her share of the assets against a possible future divorce or against a possible future death of her spouse, I think that could be a very wise thing to do. So I think it'd be cool. At the same time, with the money that you equally intake, with the money that you decide to set aside for a possible death in the family or a divorce, be generous with that, with sharing that money with people in the world who have great need, who are hungry, who are victims of war, or who have serious medical problems. Be generous with the money that you set aside.
The next question is on gender pay gap. It's sadly in the world, everywhere in the world, there's still a big gap just based on gender. Women frequently seek advice on negotiation strategies. So how can they negotiate for better pay and benefits? And most importantly, how to use the seat system to get rid of this?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's been a gender inequality gap for, I don't know, the last 50,000 years. And I gotta mention a story. I was on a plane from China about 25 years ago. And I got on the plane. It was a 747. There was a couple of hundred women on the plane, each one with a baby. And I was like, whoa, I didn't get any sleep on that flight. And I said, what's going on? And they said, well, we're adopting girl babies from this country because their parents don't want them. And we've arranged to adopt them, and so there was a time in many countries when people would rather have a boy baby than a girl baby. The percent of surviving boy babies was higher than the percent of surviving girl babies, which means somehow, the girl babies were even being hurt or killed, or they were being aborted ahead of time. And this is a terrible, terrible thing to happen. What's happened in some of those countries is that it has flipped around. The parents have realized that girl babies are much more likely to save money and help their parents than boy babies. So in some of those countries now, the percent of girl babies is steadily increasing past the percent of boy babies, surviving boy babies. And so I think what's happening is that people are beginning to realize on that kind of level, as a parent who's hoping for some kind of future security, this bias towards boy babies is changing because girl babies are often more compassionate and want to help their parents and do help their parents. So I think that's one thing. As far as earning value, I have hired thousands of people since I began my business career, and I don't know, it's not legal, but I could say that I if I meet a woman, especially one who is a mother, I'm actually much more likely to hire them if they have equal skills. You see what I mean? So I would say that women are generally more even-minded. Women are better able. My wife says men don't handle pain very well. Women are built to handle pain, especially of childbirth. And women are less prone to emotional problems. And so I think just in general, there is a markedly changing appreciation of a woman's state of emotional stability, a state of they don't get angry in the same way that men get. You rarely see a woman starting a war, for example. So I would say, in my experience, women are often, all things equal. And of course, in my country, it's not legal to look at the gender of the employee, of the applicant. But in my personal experience, women employees are more dependable. They're more stable, and so I don't know. I think it's changing, and if I am a woman, and I'm experiencing gender discrimination in a job, or I would quit, and I would go find another company that appreciated me for my skills and for my abilities, and I wouldn't stay at that company.
All right, awesome. All right, so we're done with the Google questions.
Okay, I'm happy with anything.